One of the pictures that I came across was very interesting. It was in Texas outside Fort Hood. It had a picture of my first sports car that I had. We had a little blue boat behind it, and there I am standing there. So Donna must have took the picture. Up on top of the boat was Terry sitting on the boat on there. So he would help me get the boat ready to go, or maybe load or unload it, and help me keep the vehicles clean and stuff. So if you knew Terry, that you knew that his vehicles were always very, very clean and very well maintained. These are things he was learning as a young man. His Jeep that he has now, I think is a 2014. The pictures I've seen of it, you would think this is a fairly new Jeep because it looked like it was spotless on there. So he took very good care of the things that he had. These are the things he learned as we're young, and the same with everybody else. While we learn as a young child, we carried on to our adulthood there. When we were in Texas, while I was still in the military, on the weekends during the warm season, almost every weekend our family would go boating or camping out there along the little lakes. I was a pilot in the Army, helicopter pilot. During the week, I would sneak out and go down the rivers and the lakes and find places to go camping. And on the weekends, that's what we did. A place where you had to take a boat, just nobody would drive up. So he enjoyed the water and stuff. When we finally moved back to the Bellevue, Omaha area, that my parents had a little place south of Bellevue on Hanson or Chris Lake. I can't remember which lake it was. But we spent a lot of time there visiting my parents, going down there in the warm season on the lake doing jet skiing, because Terry liked to jet ski, right? And boating and stuff, and just playing in water. So those things that he was exposed to when he was young, he was still doing it in these later years because he lived in Florida, and I think you guys like to do quite a bit of boating and stuff down there. So things that we learn when we're young, this makes you do the same things when you get a little bit older. So a couple other passions that Terry had besides keeping everything clean. I think his house was pretty spotless, wasn't it, man? It was pretty spotless. And if you knew Terry, he was very good at decorating and kind of remodeling and stuff. I think when he lived in Rachel's house in Omaha, didn't he almost completely remodel it or did a lot of work on there? So he was always finding perfection to make everything better on that. So where did he learn all this stuff from? Well, he didn't learn the decorating and the cleanliness of a house from me, so he learned that from his mom. And he carried that on in further years, and everything he had, his property, houses, boats, cars, or whatever it was, they were quite spotless on there. So that's some of the things that we learned as youth, and these are some of the things that Terry learned early. And if you know Terry or knew Terry, that yes, these are things that he was doing in his last 10, 20 years or whatever. He was the same way. During the time when he was in the Navy, he excelled quite well in there. As Bobby had said, he was in charge of the officers' mess, and apparently, not knowing exactly what it is, but I guess you had to set everything in a certain order, exactly on there, the way that they wanted it. And of all the people on the ship, I'm sure there are several hundred people or more on this ship that he was on. He was the only one that could perform that, which he did in other jobs and things that he had, whether he's taking care of the B&Bs or whatever. He was attention to detail on there. Said he was in the Gulf War on there. When he was in the Navy, he received quite a few medals and accommodations for his service and for the unit service there too. So he was excelling in everything that he did on there. He worked for my company, Prairie Homes, for a number of years. Him and my daughter, Jennifer, would do quality control, manage the subs and the crews on there. and his attention to detail, you could definitely tell that we want it done a certain way. He was ensuring that he was doing that. Anybody that, like Don, we built your house, and Terry was heavily involved in that. And he really liked working with all of our customers. He was an advocate for them to make sure that everything got done the way it was supposed to be done. Again, attention to detail that he had on there. He's a, I guess you would call a person's person, that everybody liked him. He got along with everybody in there, that our company was doing quite well. After the second year he was with us, our sales doubled, went from here to there because of Terry and his love of people and be able to communicate with them and help them to get what they want. So whatever assignment or job or item that he wanted to do, he would do it to the best of his ability. The best of his ability was very, very good. If you happen to see one of the plaques back there, certificates from the city of Omaha being a certified home builder. So a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago now, that Omaha required all builders be certified. Well, as you know, my name is Terry Bogue. His name is Terry Bogue. And probably people who know me, my brothers and sisters and Donna, know that I am not the greatest in school. So my little brain went to work, said, who do I know that's name is Terry Bogue that can pass a test on the first time? Ta-da! He passed the test on the first time. So when he moved down to Florida, on the certificate it said, Terry Bogue. So I may not be book smart, but I knew how to figure this out there. So he was very helpful with everything that he did. He had a lot of dedication, and he really put his heart into everything that he was doing. Even though he knew he had an illness for many years, he still lived the life to the fullest on there, enjoying every minute of life. I think his smartest move he made, temperature-wise, was moving to Florida, as we all will appreciate living in Nebraska. So I think that's where he got out of the Navy and stayed down there for a few years in Florida, and he moved back to Florida because he really loved it down there. Well, in the wintertime, it's 40 or 50 degrees, the very, very coldest. Summertime it gets a little warm, but it sure beats Nebraska in the winter. So he has lived his life to the fullest that he could do, and you can see that with everything that he did. One of the things that he did in retrospect, in I think it was December, he came back to Nebraska unannounced and said, here I am, and didn't tell anybody what was wrong with him or anything on there, because he kind of knew by then that he was on his last few days. He wanted his last days with his family to be one of love and friendliness and having a good time. So that it's a good way for us to remember Terry, that he was very caring. We all loved him. We had a great time with him. So he loved life, and all his friends and family. We will dearly miss him, and he'll be remembered in our hearts forever.
I'll be reading a letter from Donna to Terry. Dear Terry, no one can imagine the pain a parent feels at the loss of a child. I, now more, appreciate the immense pain of Gold Star families and other parents who have experienced this unimaginable loss. You were usually a sweet little boy who loved people. I say usually because, as all children do, you got into trouble sometimes. But that was mostly at school for being too social. Talking to your neighbor when you shouldn't have been. I always knew what the complaints at teachers' conferences would be. You never stopped being that kind, outgoing person who has lots of friends in many different places because of it. One of the sweetest things I remember about you is your need for a cookie. Maybe you remember when you were about 4, my sister and I took a road trip from Austin, Texas to Rhode Island, Illinois, with our 4 children, her 2 girls and you, and Jennifer. We stopped to visit my 90-year-old great aunt Vera, and after we'd been at her house for only a few minutes, we began patting my leg, begging, "I gotta have a cookie." Vera, in her most kind manner, as she was formerly a former elementary school teacher, said, "Let me see if I can find some cookies." All she had was her favorite adult cookies. You know, the expensive ones I didn't buy for my little cookie monsters. Vera gave each one of you her favorite cookies. It was a cookie, but I'm not sure how much you liked it. Your all-time favorites were cheap sandwich cookies in the biggest bag available at the grocery store and Girl Scout Thin Mints when you got older. I wonder how many cases of Thin Mints you bought over the years. After coming home from the Navy, you developed a blood disorder common in India and was only identified recently when you saw a doctor who had practiced in India. In 1998, the doctors gave you only a short time to be with us. But here we are in 2024 celebrating your wonderful life. That was almost 25 years ago. God gave us more time than we expected, and I'm grateful for that. Terry, you became the man I loved most of all in the world. We could talk about everything from family matters and home improvements to politics and ancient history. I will miss all the times we had together. It's so hard not to say, "I'll just ask Terry," or send you a text and you can answer when you have time. I miss you. You will be in my heart forever. I love you, Mom.
My brother was my first friend and one of my best friends. As kids, we jumped ramps on our bikes, me on my trike, and that didn't go well for me. We made tracks in the dirt for our Hot Wheels. We played in the creek in the backyard, much to our mother's dismay. And we terrorized the neighborhood kids. Along with our cousins, we liked to sneak into Grandma and Grandpa Scarf's barn and play in the hayloft because we were forbidden to do so. Many summers were spent at the cabin, swimming, making sand castles, playing sand volleyball, and not jumping off the paddle boat. As adults, we worked together for many years. We did power washing, we built homes with our father, and sold homes with Berkshire Hathaway. We always had each other's back, helped each other out as much as we could when we needed it. He used to shop at Costco, being a single guy with one roommate shopping at Costco, and was always giving me the extra food that he didn't use. It was only recently, with the help of my sisters, that I realized he probably bought those large amounts so that he could have some to give me. We very rarely fought with each other, but we always fought for each other. When I was going through cancer treatments, he supported me when I couldn't work, and when he was sick, I did everything that I could to help him. My children also grew really close with Terry. One year, Casey rode out on a train to Colorado to stay with him and Chad to go skiing and snowboarding. Bailey flew down to Florida and stayed with him and Matt for 3 weeks a few years ago to help them with their house and hang out at the beach. Most recently, we started watching the Nebraska football games together through our family text group. We called it our weekly family meeting. I can't imagine what my life is going to look like without my big brother. If I had a question, needed advice, or came across something funny to share, or just needed to bitch about something, he was the one that I would call or text. I love my brother, and I will miss him every day.
There's nothing that could have prepared me to make this speech. None of my speech classes ever said anything about this type of speech. Give speech in front of a city council, but that's totally different. There's so much to say, but nothing seems like the right thing. Just so weird to have life without Terry. He's, being the oldest, that's all I've ever known. He always knew, I always knew that no matter what, he'd be there to cheer me on or kick my butt or whatever was needed at that time. In addition to all of those jobs listed in his obituary, he also gave me my first job. I cleaned up the trash in the bank parking lot, and he paid me in gum. I think I was about 5 years old at the time. He was always the fun uncle. He encouraged his nieces and nephews to have fun no matter what. He even caused a little bit of chaos along the way. We all loved him, and he left big shoes to fill.